Hello, and welcome back to the Blue Space, where bold ideas meet Africa's future. My name is Susan Njuguna. Let's talk infrastructure, not just energy and roads, but the engine of industrialization, the backbone of our digital economies, and the shield of our national sovereignty. Here is a reality. Africa trade costs are 75% higher than the global average. This is not just a number, it is a signal. We cannot continue to build without a strategy. Infrastructure is not luxury, it is our competitive advantage. At the 2025 East Africa Institutional Investors Forum, the investors posed a challenge, which is, if we want transformation, we must rethink how we design our energy systems, structure our capital markets, and build infrastructure that lasts. Let us listen in.
90% of Africa's trade by volume goes through its seaports, but logistics costs anywhere between 50 and 75% more than the rest of the world. It really makes the continent uncompetitive.
There's no use of building a hydro project or a solar project, but it doesn't get to the end user.
Green should not come at the cost of industrializing. Green should not come at the cost of job creation, because we just don't have the luxury of that.
Bankability is the attractiveness of an investment. It has to be sustainable. It has to have a good return expected, credit-worthy. It has to have a defined risk profile so that you determine the appetite.
When it comes to bankability, we will look at financial viability. Is it legal sound? And technical in whatsoever they are doing, is it feasible?
We do have an opportunity to fund the East Africa infrastructure gap. Actual opportunities have come to life because of capital allocators who are willing and now have the confidence to actually drive the economic growth of the region. The reflections from Arusha remind us that Africa has a raw materials, capital pools, energy reserves, and even investor appetite. But strategy alone is not enough. It's only as good as the way in which it's executed. To make infrastructure truly transformational, we need it to be bankable and sustainable. To deep dive into these reflections, I'm joined by two colleagues who will help me challenge capital holders to move from the sidelines and come to center stage. I have Bernard Gugi, our head of energy and infrastructure, and Brian Wambani, our head of investment banking. Welcome, Bernard.
Thank you.
So help us make this tangible for capital allocators. What does strategy in infrastructure really look like for Kenya?
Strategy in infrastructure in Kenya should focus in deploying the resources to the sectors that are going to create incremental growth for both the country and for the individuals. And by ensuring that we are allocating capital to the sectors that have the ability to create what I would call a catalytic effect. For example, a road infrastructure, when it is developed, it becomes an anchor asset that drives a lot of other economic activities. And whether it is opening up markets for farm produce, making it easy for people to move from one point to another, reducing the emissions that ideally would be going into the atmosphere by vehicles taking long duration on the roads. Having the right infrastructure, we keep on bringing what we call the multiplier impact into the economy.
All right. That's interesting, and it starts to bring this strategy to life. Let me shift gears to you, Brian. So vision is fantastic, but if it's not bankable, no one is going to put money into it. I just want you to demystify for institutional investors what bankability really is.
Thank you, Susan. So when we talk about bankability, at the heart of it is the project viable? And largely, you're talking viability from 2 points. Largely, might be other points, but there's 2 points that you'd focus on in this case. Is it financially viable? Are you going to make a return for the level of risk that you're taking? Is that return commensurate? And then the second thing is it going to harm the environment and the society. So you have to make sure that the impact is minimal to both people and the environment. So that speaks largely to viability, and in that sense, bankability.
Fantastic. Any additional thoughts on that, Bernard?
The good point that Brian has made, the projects that need to be brought to the market, they need first to ensure that they protect the capital, because if you erode the capital, then you actually diminish the resources that are necessary for you to continue reinvesting. And so having the right structures, asking all the right questions, ensuring that all the risks that are inherent in the project are well understood, and where they cannot be mitigated, then they are well managed. I believe if we look at infrastructure investments from that lens, we are going to make it more sustainable and more attractive to other investors.
Absolutely spot on. And I think for institutional investors, it's a balance between risk and return, and also just ensuring risk is allocated to the right parties. Now, coming to you, Bernard, something that we always say is about infrastructure and the impact it has on our sovereignty as a nation. What's the interplay you see there?
So the interplay between developed infrastructure and sovereignty is that as a country, you want to ensure that first you have economically empowered your population. You also want to make sure that you also have a competitive advantage when it comes to international trade. This can be achieved by ensuring that at least you are exporting more than what you are importing. That also gives you a good channel for you to earn foreign exchange. It also gives you the bargaining chips when you are negotiating, whether for trade terms, international trade terms, or any other negotiation with other partners. You are always having an edge. And again, when you empower your population by facilitating their economic empowerment, you end up building a resilient population, and also you are creating the what we call the foundation for future growth for the current generation and for the people who will come after.
So, Brian, we've talked about sparking transformation, and earlier on we talked about how expensive the trade costs are in Africa. To manage this and ensure infrastructure is truly transformational, how do we ensure that our trade corridors are actually spurring economic activity?
Yeah, so Susan, at the very heart of it, at the very heart of trade is infrastructure. If you look at this from a historical perspective, you find that, for trade to begin, we had a seaport, then a rail, and then we had roads, which then opened up the country. And this created these trade routes, what we used to call trade corridors. So infrastructure allowed for trade to happen. And in so doing, people are able to get jobs, increase their income. The economy just became better. Now, what that does in terms of, linking that with sovereignty is once your economy is better, once your economy is stronger, you have a better bargaining position as a nation. So that's just one item. So infrastructure also allows for an area to be administered. And so with proper infrastructure, you're able to administer an area, and ensure there's security. And then that just contributes to the sovereignty of a country. And so at the very heart of it, the heart of trade, infrastructure is important. At the heart of sovereignty as a country, infrastructure is very important.
Absolutely fantastic. Any burning closing remark?
Maybe what I can add on top of what Brian has shared, Kenya in particular, we find ourselves in a very strategic position in the region. And given that we have an anchor asset in the name of Mombasa Port, having the right infrastructure that would actually bring value to the activities of the port, facilitating trade that needs to happen through Kenya into our neighboring countries, it still continues enhancing Kenya's position in the region, and also the economic empowerment that goes with all the activities around that infrastructure. So I am convinced that we need to pay special attention to mobilizing all the resources available in the country to develop our own infrastructure to make our country competitive in the region and also in the continent.
So, Brian, let's come to you. We've talked about real transformation. But the reality is we need to address the trade costs. What role do you see infrastructure playing in actually enabling trade and real commerce?
So at the heart of trade is infrastructure. If you look at it from a historical perspective, you see we started with a small port, rail, and then roads, into the hinterland. And that then facilitated trade. So there was infrastructure that facilitated that trade. And so it's upon us to make sure that these trade corridors have the proper infrastructure. Because look at it like this. If you have proper infrastructure, people are able to trade, they earn income, their livelihoods improve. And then that means that, as a nation, the economic pie also gets bigger. That allows us to be in a situation whereby we have a better negotiating position because of that. And then that then speaks to our sovereignty as a country. The other thing is that we not only, facilitate trade, but we also facilitate the administration of our country, as our region, by having proper infrastructure. And that then allows services to come through, things like being able to police areas, which again speaks to being able to, you have security, you're able to trade better and without fear of being robbed or things of the sort. And so infrastructure really is at the heart of trade. It's at the heart of our sovereignty as a country and as a region. And so it's quite paramount that this infrastructure is developed and maintained to ensure that trade happens and we progress as a nation.
Thank you, Brian. This conversation has made one thing clear, that we must address our trade costs so that infrastructure can actually spur economic activity in the way it's meant to do. We need to think about cost not in terms of shilling, but actual opportunity lost. Because trade is the arteries of real commerce. When we build with purpose, with intention, it'll ensure that these projects are actually bankable. Thank you for joining this episode of The Blue Space, where bold thinking meets Africa's opportunity. In our next episode, we go deeper into how we structure capital markets to make energy projects bankable. See you next time.